Welcome back, everyone, to part 2 of the WWE End of the Year Awards, talking about the best and the worst that happened in World Wrestling Entertainment over 2022. Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast, presenting to you the Writing Awards section that we have going on right now. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for continuing on. Go check out the Technical Skills Awards if you have not already listened to part 1 of the WWE side of things. And just a little reminder, we have the AEW awards that are going to be covering essentially the same awards that we have going on. So we're splitting the difference for that. But we want to thank you for tuning in. We want to remind you to tell us what you think of all these awards and what your picks would be for the best and the worst of all these different categories. And just a reminder, in case you were clicking on this video for the first separate time or you forgot somehow over the course of the last bit of audio, I'm Tony Mango, joined by Callum, Wiggins, and Robert DeFelice. Usual suspects here, holding down the fort. We're all having a good time talking about all our positives and negatives. How you guys feeling after doing those technical skills?
I'm feeling great. I think this is even more fun because now we get to talk about some of the worst stuff that we've seen on TV. And boy, there's been a lot.
Mm.
Yeah, I feel like a burden has been lifted off of my shoulders to just like get rid of some of the worst stuff and elevate the good stuff of the year. So I'm more than raring to go to do the rest of them.
So another reminder, we are recording this on the 13th of December. It is currently 5:40 p.m. for anybody who wants to know that. I don't know why you necessarily do, but maybe something breaks at 6 o'clock and we don't know. So we haven't seen like the tonight's episode of NXT or the ones that they're recording in advance or anything like that. So they might factor in. It might be something that happens that we decide that, this is so much better or worse and we should have gone with a different pick instead. But you're probably listening to this somewhere around the 20-something-ish, 21st or so. So keep that in mind. But also keep in mind that just because we're talking about the best and the worst of WWE doesn't mean that we aren't cognizant of the fact that we can be better and we can do better. So we want to know what you have to say. Fill out the fan feedback survey of how we can improve for 2023 for Smark Out Moment. And that'll all be factored into the end of the year recap when we talk about that around the very, very tail end of 2022. Also keep in mind that you can help support us through a myriad of different means. The little thanks button you can see on YouTube right now if you're over there. Also start clicking around on that like button, the share button, the join button. That'll become an access to the same stuff that we have on Patreon. So the Darkcast, the Pick Your Poison tier, etc., including the $1 a month tier. I highly, highly recommend joining the channel membership, if not just to let us know that you support us and you think that our content's great. Also pick up some merchandise on TeePublic and Redbubble that are currently on sale right now. So take advantage of that. Get some stuff while you can. And we're going to continue on here with the Writing Awards from WWE. So let's get that stuff all set up. We've got, 9 categories or so. And there's a best and worst for each one of them except for one, because one of them kind of by default doesn't have a best and worst distinction to it. We're starting off with the catchphrase or slogan. This could be something like the catchphrase that they say on all their promos, or it could be kind of a moniker of sorts. Not necessarily the gimmick, because that's the next award, but it's something along those lines. So on the worst side of things, I would have normally given it, if we're going to stick to like a character-based thing, I would give it to Hit Rose. If you didn't know, now you know, because I think that is one of the most bland-ass things you could possibly say. That's essentially like saying, well, if you didn't understand, here's a memo or something. I really don't understand why that's supposed to be catchy. Maybe it's just lost on me. But then they did something different this year that is only going to apply for this year. So I'm definitely going to give it the worst. The most stupendous WrestleMania. Not a lot of people know what the word stupendous means. Fucking Vince McMahon on Pat McAfee saying that's why he went with the word stupendous is like driving that home.
Gotta look it up,
You gotta look it up in the dictionary. Not a lot of people know what the word stupendous means. What the fuck are you thinking? And they drove that just they beat that drum so much that it was fucking making me nuts because it's the most stupendous. And you got Kevin Owens and everybody going like, is it the most stupendous? Because they're just like, this is dog shit. What the fuck are we doing? That's the best you can think of for WrestleMania. Yeah, you used to put in some effort into these. It'd be like, oh, this is like the bad blood thing, and this is, whatever the different phrases they used to do for these pay-per-views, and WrestleMania Goes Hollywood, and you used to do these promos where they're like doing the scenes from Taxi Driver and all. And instead, their idea of promoting WrestleMania this year was stupendous. So I got to imagine that there's a conference table and they're sitting there going, how do we promote WrestleMania? I don't know, great. How about we say it's good? How about the most goodest WrestleMania? Bullshit. Major thumbs up, thumbs down, and major middle fingers up. What do you guys got for best or for worst slogan or catchphrase?
So, first of all, stupendous was awful, and I hope that they make fun of it next year, where somebody tries to say the word stupendous and they get cut off immediately. There's a couple really bad ones, like there's, you mentioned if you didn't know now you know. I don't like that's everybody's down, A-Town down. There's a lot about Austin Theory that I just don't like, that I'm learning about myself as we do these. But realistically, I thought of Who Wants to Speak with Zeke, because that was fucking awful. That whole thing was awful. There's the Mountain of Omnipotence, because I don't know what Edge was doing for that month or two he was in Judgment Day. But then I think about it and I say, sincerely, scripts. I don't like scripts. I think I have maybe a bit more sour taste in my mouth because I have to watch NXT every Tuesday for Fightful. Like, this is my job. Oh fuck, this guy's scripts is coming. I gotta do that now. Like, it just wasn't good. I don't like the character. I don't know if I'm gonna get a chance to crap on the character next year because he might be gone. But sincerely, scripts, I think, is up there because, okay, your scripts. What are you? Who are you? You're in a bad mask. You're Reggie. We all know who you are. Well, what is this? So, yeah, I think I'm gonna go with sincerely scripts.
So I'd forgotten about stupendous, and that might actually end up taking it from me just because it's just so.
It's egregious.
Yeah, so Vince McMahon. To be fair, that is a word that I would use probably. And then I had down, "You're not Ezekiel, you're Elias," because that's pretty much what Kevin Owens' catchphrase was for the several months after WrestleMania. But I've decided just to double down on the carrying cross dislike and just go with TikTok. You know what's the most stupid about TikTok? It's because he uses a fucking hourglass, which doesn't have a TikTok in it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. You know what? You mentioned that. Here's another one. It wouldn't be on my worst, but Drew McIntyre this year decided to pick up on "Let me hear ya scream." I'm not really big on that. Thankfully, there's quite a few options for best, so I'm excited to get to that.
Yeah, we do have some good ones to go through. So is that your ultimate pick, Callum?
Yeah, I'll go with TikTok.
TikTok's one of those that, yeah, I can definitely see that.
You know what? For the delivery, dishonorable mention in this case. Welcome to the generation of Jade.
Yeah, that is
you can't make her re-record this. You're a multi-million-dollar company. Get her back in the booth and get it with some feeling.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck is that?
Yeah, the generation of Jade.
Now, from this moment.
Yeah,
the genesis of Jade.
What if that's the ultimate take, and that one was the best take? Like, she just, all right, we need you to record your intro and just be like, "Welcome to the generation of Jade," and she's like, "I don't have a mustache," and they're like, "Fuck, all right, come on."
So that's definitely up there. Almost as he said that, for some reason it made me think of Veer, and I just thought about the 1 week he went on Raw and said "boo," and and then did a fucking interview with media that said, "Oh, that's so great because what else do you need? I said, boo. That company is so messed up.
Well, on the best side of things, there's a couple that I really like. And the only one that's not related to the bloodline is Mello Don't Miss. His whole idea of when Carmelo shoots, he don't miss, those things that go along with that. But there's 3 with the new with the bloodline. So I was just like, it's hard to pick between you the 2s and we the 1s. I think that not only is something that's serviceable in character of like, hey, fuck you, we're better than you. It's also catchy. And they factor that into their finisher. Acknowledge Me is still fucking great. To the point that every time Roman Reigns comes out there, he's like, he's going to say it. It's like, say the line, Bart. That kind of thing. But we got a treated to an even better one this year, which is Feeling Oozy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the best one. Feeling Oozy is so good.
Do we have our first trio vote?
I think so, right? Like, it really is legitimately just the funniest thing.
Hey, it took 19 awards. No, 21 awards.
It just feels like something you can just use in everyday life. And even if people you're talking to just don't know anything about wrestling, just say like, oh, how are you feeling today? It's like, I'm not feeling as oozy as I was yesterday or anything like that. It's so good. It's such a good phrase, and it cracks everyone up when he uses it. And it's something that they could use moving forward, whether like he should still be saying oozy even when he's out of the bloodline eventually. But that was, Feeling Oozy is so good. It should be on t-shirts. It should be on everything.
Bumper stickers. Honk if you're feeling oozy.
Just to give one shout out to a great runner-up. Sheesh.
Yeah, there we go.
That is a lot of fun.
I think it was hurt by I think he overdid it. I think they made him. It was like it's everything. Every time he came out, he was doing it. It's like Sammy doesn't always say oozy. When he does, it's great.
And like, are you feeling oozy? Like, he's making people pop and all. Like, man.
Like, I mean, I'd almost shout out to the one that he just did once, which was Oozy in the Sky with Diamonds. That's so good.
Oh, God, he's great.
Yeah.
So, switching over from the catchphrase and slogan, very happy to see we finally have a triumvirate vote. Let's see if we end up getting that for some of these other things. Gimmick. This is character-based thing. So, it doesn't matter if somebody's good in the ring. They could do some amazing moves, but goddamn do they have a bad character. Or when it comes to, hey, they can be terrible in the ring, but their character is super, super fun on the best side. On the worst, stop me if you picked it. We got, for these potential runner-ups and stuff, Ezekiel. Definitely one of the ones I really hated. Wasn't a big fan of that.
It's my runner-up, I think, but I might be swayed to pick it.
There's Dancing Shanky. His gimmick is he likes to dance and Jinder doesn't like that he likes to dance. And that's what you're going to do is he's going to dance to the ring and Jinder's going to go, and then Shanky's going to go, I wasn't dancing. And then when he turns around, I was dancing, which is so
really looking forward to that
dumb.
Indian pay-per-view.
God, it's probably going to be a part of it, isn't it? There is the way that I phrased this. Dana Brooke is awful and everyone knows it, but she gets offended and, quote, just wants to wrestle and prove herself.
Wow, okay.
Because it's become a thing.
Did you miss the garbage can with the 24/7 championship as well? Because, geez, way to take a crap on her.
Because it's become a thing. Dolph Ziggler says, I am being overlooked and I don't get the credit that I deserve. And every single thing revolving around Dana Brooke is, why can't I just wrestle and prove to them how much better I am? I put in all the work and that's my gimmick. And then she goes out and has a shitty match and loses, and that's the end of it. And Corey Graves will be like, see, she blows. And then it's like, you just got to do the same thing all over again. So I'm not a big fan of that character. I don't like Brooks Jensen's love life. story revolving constantly around this guy. He's like,
Yeah,
I
right,
broke
like,
my hand and I can't jack off or something. And it's like, why do I care? Like,
But you don't mean Virgin is working for you as a gimmick?
no, Virgil, much better than Virgin.
It only works when I book Dominic to be the Virgin.
Yeah, that's a much better story.
One thing we know about Virgil is that he's not a virgin.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that fuck money and everything too. I really don't understand why Axiom is the way that Axiom is, where I get putting a mask on a kid and being like, let's try a luchador thing. Like, that's cool. You flip around, you can maybe sell some merchandise and all, but what is this golden ratio bullshit? If I study all the numbers and I can figure out the right math behind this, like you're the goddamn Russell Crowe from that one movie, that one Best Picture that shouldn't have.
Beautiful Mind.
Yeah, Beautiful Mind. Overrated. So is Gladiator for that matter, but the Beautiful Mind definitely even more so.
Jeez, okay,
Yeah, Last Jedi sucked, by the way. Fanboys Anonymous. Go to fanboysanonymous.com for this movie talk. But we might have a trio on this one. Scripps.
Yeah, let's go.
Why is Reggie being like, I'm gonna fuck everybody up in NXT. I'm a super intimidating guy. I'm practically like fucking Bane from Batman. And he comes out and he's wearing a shitty Halloween costume that his mom slapped together at the last minute by just cutting up a bunch of random tattered rags. And then he's like, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do my flip into the ring and wrestle kind of as a heel, kind of as a face, sort of tweener. You don't know if you're supposed to boo or cheer me. But I beat the guy, and now I am leaving a calling card, and I'm pretending to write in the air. Who the fuck said, let's throw 8 of these ideas together and they'll work?
There's a way to do this. And I hope to God next year I get the opportunity to say, you know what, I was dead wrong about this. But this is the worst fucking thing. And not the least of which is being because he looks so dumb. He looks so stupid. He's literally wearing just like an oversized mask. And the most generic, baggy ring attire. It's just Reggie. I hate this. My runner-up was Ezekiel because that was god-awful too, but at least that got some play on the main roster and they got some laughs out of it. This is just god-awful.
I'm not going with Scripps.
Boo!
Because he's only been on TV once. It's not.
You know,
it was terrible. It was one of the worst debuts of the entire year. But it's like it's only been on TV once.
Well,
that one time made an impression.
I know, and it was bad. This is your.
This is my Catalina.
Catalina. Yeah, this is your Catalina. I've just got a list of the worst with just some things on it. Obviously, Scripps is there. Scripps. Bad Halloween cosplay poet. So this is just the gimmick names that I've given them. Maximum male models, harmless models, because they just don't win anything or don't do anything useful. Alba Fire, lady who likes fire. Happy Corbin and Mad Cat Moss, creepy guys you met at Las Vegas and just like took home or something. I don't know. Nikki ASH, almost a superhero. Almost a character, I guess. It's like she was, yeah. It was just a bit weird towards the end of it because she became a villain one as well, and that just didn't work either. Ezekiel, also known as Elias, also known as Ezekiel, also known as Elrond. That's kind of that whole gimmick is bad. Tommaso Ciampa, Miz's friend. That's basically what his gimmick was when he came up to Raw. And then you have the two ones that fight out between. Dexter Lumis, mute, cute, creepy stalker guy. Because that's just...
The mute cute?
I don't know why he's a babyface. He invaded the Miz's home and stalked his children. And yeah, he's the babyface.
Well, yeah.
And then the obvious one, Wendy Chu, adult toddler. Because that's essentially what Wendy Chu is. I know she drinks coffee, but you know, that's like, but that's her thing. She's just wearing a onesie to the ring, and her Twitter game is so much better than her actual character. Have you seen some of the stuff that she posts on Twitter about how like like she's basically calling Cora Jade a whore on Twitter most of the time.
Kind of like Natty. Natty's so much better on Twitter, and then she gets a promo in the ring, and you're like, nah, come on, do the thing on Twitter.
But I'm over this whole gimmick. I just want her to beat, because she's really good. She has actually got a lot of talent in the ring, and I think given the right character, she could cut good promos. So just take her out the onesie and just put her in some ring gear now.
Damn shame we never got to see whatever the hell Mei Ying was going to be. Like, that would have been fun.
She might be the first person.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, she might be the first person to win the worst. I don't know from me, but at least from one of us, because I'm pretty sure either Mei Ying or that entire group was down at the worst for one of us, like in the last few years. She might be the first person to win this award under 2 different gimmicks.
Maybe. I don't know if let me see if that might have been on that for the end of the year awards last year. Let me see. Last year I went with Sleepy Wendy Chu.
Oh, okay.
That's the worst. I also had.
So you actually like her? You actually like her? What is she?
I went
again. She is not Scripps.
Yeah, it's Scripps. Yeah, last year my worst was Sleepy Wendy Chu, and the runner-up was Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss, Ember Moon, and Retribution. And then my best gimmick for last year, which is not going to carry over into this year, was Matt Riddle. But this year, yeah, I kind of like the idea of, this is a very low, like, maybe bronze medal, kind of thing. But I kind of like the idea that Hank Walker was a security guard, and they were like, okay, it ends up being like you get into a fight, then let's give you a contract. I'm not huge on Hank Walker as he is right now, but I like the idea. I've always thought that they should do that. I really, really like Andre Chase University.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fucking fun. But that's secondary to honorary Uce and eventually full-blown member of the Bloodline, Sami Zayn.
But, yeah. Is that your pick as well?
That's my pick.
I mean, yeah, of course it's my pick as well. Sami Zayn.
Well, yeah, honorary Uce is my pick as well.
Oh, Sami Zayn.
And of course it's Sami Zayn, because Sami Zayn is the greatest and he's been the best person all year. But just as a few honorable mentions, I really like Pretty Deadly. I think they're so much fun.
Yes, boy. Like, I have been on the Fabio twins train since I first saw them in NXT UK. I think that they're tremendous. I think that they are the only act in NXT right now that gets those vignettes and actually does well with them, because they have a personality and they're so good.
But I'd say the other one that does really well with the vignettes is the one that Tony mentioned, is Chase University. They're great as well.
Oh yeah,
Chase, yeah, they're great. And and I know you were down on them as like a tag team. I'm actually a big fan of Briggs and Jensen. I think they're a really good tag team. I think they actually play off each other really well.
Yeah, I just don't like the Brooks part of him being like, I broke my wrist and now I can't jack off and whatever.
Yeah, that's maybe a little bit too childish, but
real quick,
I still like him.
Because I don't know when we're ever going to get the chance to talk about this again. What do you think the payoff to that angle is going to be?
He fucked someone.
I mean, but it has to be it has to be that Fallon's going to sit there and go, you've never bothered looking at me in that way. And then it's like, oh, I'm so stupid because she was right there all along. That has to be the payoff, right?
I would think, but they've not at all hinted that she might have any kind of thoughts for him.
I always got the feeling that she would end up with Briggs, and that ends up with the breakup between the two.
That could work. Yeah.
Either way, I think that is something they should play around with. Because, again, it's not a bad gimmick. It's just silly.
I got it. Then he ends up with a new tag team, and it's Mae Young's son.
Oh,
because he's just left with his hand.
I got I don't need to use my hand anymore. I've got this one.
Yep.
That's not that.
And the name of the tag team is Give Me a Hand. Their finisher's the good old fashioned.
Oh no!
Oh, I can see the headlines now. Give me a hand, jobs to other tag teams.
A happy ending for all.
Yeah. Look at this. We're doing your work for you, WWE.
Other good gimmicks this year were Alpha Academy. I thought they stepped up this year as a good like especially Chad Gable this year stuff. Seth Rollins, it's fun. Seth Rollins, this is crazy. Like, I'm just gonna wear whatever the fuck I want, Seth Rollins, and it's really good. And of course the traditional Brock Lesnar as Brock Lesnar.
Cowboy Brock, having some fun. Man, so we're very much on that pro Sami Zayn hype train, which is great, and he is still gonna pop up some more times coming up in the future.
Give an honorable mention to one more thing, and that's Dom subbing for Rhea Ripley. Because like
that's good, yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good pairing. I don't think they go far enough. Like they should push it a little bit more, because that's so much fun.
What do you want to do next time? Like him comes in riding Rhea Ripley?
No. Maybe the other way around, the way that they have it, but you know.
No, he'd be impaled on her. I'm just saying.
I think that there's more you can absolutely do with like where you make it see like, okay, this is why this guy would betray his father, because she whispers in his ear, but they haven't really played off of the idea that there's like a physical connection there. It's just, haha, pretty girl's talking to me, I'm just gonna go ahead and do whatever she says.
Yeah, like a lovesick puppy. And it's a fun character. It's a better way than if he was just like, I'm mad at my dad, and that's it, you know. So here's everybody's favorite section of the website for some reason. I don't understand why, but I love that you guys support it. The heel and face turns of the year. Now, we're not going to do best face turn, best heel turn, worst of both. It's whatever you think was the best heel or face turn and the best heel or face turn. But there's a whole list of them. There's 1,000 fucking comments, or currently 521 as we're doing this, of people debating where they jump straight to, you know, this person smiled at the camera, that means that they're a babyface now, kind of thing.
I love when they do that.
Just Daddy. Did you see that? Somebody said hello. They're a heel now. They should have said hi. But on this list, I've got a couple really bad ones that are in the mix here. My bronze medal being Finn Balor turning heel to join the Judgment Day. What the hell was going on there? They're like, hey, you know, the person who lost and all, that's where we're going to go for. Not as bad as the two other picks, though. Hence why it's bronze medal for me. Really could have been the pick. It's a very close silver medal for me. Is Lacey Evans. What the hell they were thinking this year with this. Let's have her talk about her military experience, and let's have her talk about like her parents and like drug abuse and all these things she's gone through, because she's a very, you know, honorable person that is gone through a lot. And hey, she's still here and she's still kicking and she's fighting, and she would say things, you know, I'm not saying I'm any better than anybody else on the roster, but none of them are better than me, because I'm still showing my daughter how to be a tough woman in today's modern age and all this. And it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're setting her up pretty good for a babyface turn. And they do it enough that it's like, all right, this is kind of getting a little bit preachy and annoying. Maybe you want to kind of hold all back on this. And instead, they go, fucking cheer for her, assholes. Clap. You're like, huh? You're really going to tell me that I need... no. You don't do that with this crowd. That doesn't work. And then they start saying, like, no, our plan was that she would be a heel. If that's your plan, it's absolutely hard. The hell are you thinking with that? And then, of course, it doesn't work out, and she bounces around here and there. And now it seems like they've actually been trying to figure out the right way of doing it, which is like, nah, maybe you should actually probably kind of cheer her. You know? But that, for the longest time, would have been the pick until Cora Jade tried to hit Roxanne Perez with a skateboard.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go ahead and say that is also mine. Callum, is that yours?
No, it's not.
Well, Rob, you're in agreement here that not only was this a bad turn in the sense of the turn itself, like the skateboard breaking before it even hits her and all. But you just fucking won the tag titles.
7 days before, they had just won the tag titles. And it really came across strange because like, you knew she had the title shot. What are you mad at? There were so many different ways you could have done this. This was the least effective. It just felt like, hey, we're still starting out on this brand. We're new. We need a top heel. We need to turn you now. And
we're impatient. Could just be them being like, we wanted to do Cora Jade versus Roxanne Perez at some point down the line, and my God, I don't want them as a tag team anymore. It's been a week. You know?
As we all have been observing Shawn Michaels in this new role, the constant theme that I go back to is, oh, he's just booking his career. Because, like, that's stuff like that he would do. Where 1 week he's tagging with this guy, the next week, super kick. And now I'm a heel again because I'm the showstopper and you can't trust me. Seems like Shawn books Shawn and imposes it onto other people.
Well, you're not going in that direction. Where are you going, Callum?
Actually, looking at my nominations, maybe I should have gone with that one.
You could change your mind.
So that is pretty bad. It's just one that completely slipped my mind earlier. So, but I mean, there's other ones that I've got. This year is one where I really started to notice the turn that is never a turn, like a turn that just happens because of reasons, like Dolph Ziggler.
Like he just happens to start fighting heels. Like,
yeah, just like, and Shotzi. Like, okay, she was heel for most of the year, and then the heel became a champion, and so the champion became a heel, and so you had to turn her babyface, even though there was no reason for it. And Ronda fits into that as well because she was babyface, and then Liv Morgan won, and she hugged her for having her cash in on her for some reason, and then eventually, very gradually turned heel. The other two ones that I had on my list are Edge, because he shouldn't have turned heel. Just in hindsight, it was just a bad move all around. And it was the whole decision to turn Logan Paul babyface in the feud with The Miz. It's like Logan Paul doesn't work as a babyface, but then he wrestled Roman Reigns and it actually turned out to be pretty good. Even though I still don't think people want him to be a babyface.
Nah, like if he goes up against Brock, for instance, Logan Paul's getting booed.
Yeah. So maybe in the grand scheme of things, it's actually the Cora Jade one, just because of how ridiculous it was that she turned on Roxanne just immediately after winning the tag titles and then throwing the tag titles in the trash. And we were hoping that maybe they just end the women's NXT Women's Tag Team Championships because they don't need them. You've got women's tag titles that you could defend on all brands. But yeah, that was that. Yeah, so realistically, that's probably the worst one. It's either that or it's the, as you say, the Finn Balor thing, because it just makes no sense that they decided to turn their back on the guy that won the match on the previous show, and then
stupid. Like I've never seen such. It's stupid.
Yeah, it's both stupid on the side of, oh well, this guy lost the match against us, and so we're going to make him the new quote unquote leader or member of this group. And secondly, like, why does that make Edge a babyface from getting kicked out of his group? Why is he now a good guy?
Yeah,
like, it's one of those ones where Edge hasn't actually, repented or seen the error of his ways. He's just gotten beaten up and kicked out of his group, and now he's suddenly a babyface again.
That's one of the things that I always say in the list. I'm like, look, a heel attacking another heel does not immediately make the other one a babyface. It happens a lot. It shouldn't, but it's not like a definitive, okay, that's what happens. Because, I mean, look at every other type of genre out there. Like Magneto is a villain most of the time. He fights Apocalypse. Doesn't make him a good guy. Although Magneto's pretty fucking great.
Yeah. Actually, now just don't think about it. I might actually go with this just because I just can't understand the logic behind it, which is turning Seth Rollins babyface when Cody Rhodes is still waiting to come back.
I think the argument is probably always going to be that he's not, and they'll make that decision in the moment.
Yeah, but I just think that I know he does get like the popular of like these the crowd singing his theme tune and stuff like that. But having like Lashley turn heel on him and him, defeating Austin Theory after being cashed in on, just all screamed that they're trying to turn him babyface, which feels like the worst decision when you've got you've got Cody Rhodes on the sidelines and he's the guy he's going to be targeting, the guy that quote unquote took him out of action and attacked him on the way out. So,
the only thing I would say is that he did throw a line out there about like, I'll just ask Cody something. So it's like they might be going for more of like ambiguous tweener that you can cheer for against the heels rather than full on babyface. I don't know.
In which case, for a bit more certainty, then I'll just go with the whole Finn Balor Edge switcheroo.
Yeah. On the best side of heel and face turns, my runner-up is Trent Seven turning heel on Tyler Bate. You're not going to get much NXT UK talk on this, but that's one of the things. So that was pretty good. But I got to go with Solo Sikoa turning heel to cost Drew McIntyre the win at Clash at the Castle. Because not only was it a turn that mattered, but it immediately was like, no, he's a heel now. Fuck that guy.
Yep, that's good. That's a good choice. It's definitely on my list. I went with the whole infighting within the Diamond Mine stuff, which ended up being like, if everyone thinks it's Roderick Strong who's causing all of these issues, but it's actually Damon Kemp. And so it was just it was one that they managed to help make sense over time. Like they showed that, because they showed all those footage and things like that, so it felt like, this is a turn you've actually been planning for a while, rather than just a spur of the moment thing that we decided, okay, we're just going to swerve them and everyone thinks that it's Roderick, so we're just going to go to Damon Kemp. It actually came across that they were planning this out for a while. So I like that. Rhea Ripley joining Judgment Day because she's so much better in this heel role than she was as a babyface for a while. As much as people enjoyed her teaming up with Liv Morgan and the costumes they would wear, she's much better in this heel role. But the best heel turn is Dominic Mysterio.
Yeah, I gotta at least put him in for a runner-up.
That had the best reaction. I think that it is going to lead to a big match at WrestleMania between the Mysterio family. And they've done a good job with it so far. Like Ray basically saying, I'm not going to fight him, I'll just move to the other brand, and trying to separate as much as possible. But then you still have the little seeds of the Thanksgiving thing they did. So, yeah, I think Dominic has had a very successful heel turn.
Yeah, I would say, and it's still fresh, but just for the fact that it rectified the silly ASH stuff, I think the best turn was Nikki throwing away the mask, because we got Nikki Cross back. She's teasing Sanity, and we know that there's at least one of them back on their way in. And more than anything, Nikki Cross gave us the gift of getting rid of the 24/7 title. And I think that alone makes her heel turn successful.
Is it really a heel turn, though? Because she went from heel to heel.
She was... That's true. That's more of a character change.
Plus, isn't she a babyface for getting rid of that 24/7 title?
In my mind, yes. I mean, like... All right, but...
Yeah, it's more of a character change than a heel turn.
Then I will say for flat out heel turn, it's Rhea Ripley joining Judgment Day, because she needed it.
Yeah.
She was on the same track as Raquel. She was all but lost her edge, no pun intended, and this really revitalized her.
Let's move over to the best and worst title reigns of the year. And unfortunately, I have a lot more for worst than I do for best. So, stop me if it's your pick. Here's a couple runner-ups. I don't know which one I'm going to go with quite yet. Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez for the women's tag team titles in NXT.
I won't even count it.
Couple days, then Jade turns, puts the title in the trash. Roxanne goes, okay, well, I'm the only champion. And then a couple days later goes, actually, I'll take the belt out of the trash and then give it up. Stupid. But the women's tag team titles just continued with those bad things, because we got Aaliyah and Raquel Rodriguez. They win the tournament because, haha, it's not Damage Control. And then they immediately lose it because, haha, it was Damage Control. Damage Control loses it to Alexa Bliss and Asuka because, isn't that interesting? And then they get rid of it because they go back to Damage Control because it's actually supposed to be Damage Control. So 2 of those right there with Bliss and Asuka and Aaliyah and Rodriguez. We've got the Solo Sikoa NXT North American Championship reign. Because Wesley gets a fan vote to get a title shot. And instead of getting the title shot, he gets attacked. And they go, well, I don't know, fucking Solo Sikoa, who had just turned heel, mind you, comes to be this like babyface that's going to beat Carmelo Hayes outside of the fact that he's already on SmackDown now. So he goes down to NXT for a babyface pop after turning heel in a match he's not qualified to do, wins the title, and then the next time we see it, it's on SmackDown as, look at this, we got the North American champion. That's interesting. And then by Tuesday, Shawn Michaels goes, yeah, you weren't supposed to be in that match. Give me that fucking belt back. And they count it for some reason instead of just giving it back to Carmelo Hayes. I don't understand what they were thinking with that. It's got to be just to get people talking. Has to be. Or they were sitting there going, well, we really, really wanted Solo Sikoa to have that on his resume. Stupid.
It's a couple of things. First of all, they wanted the shot during the Logan Paul press conference of every single one of the bloodline having gold. And they got it that way.
No,
More than anything.
As Von Wagner would say, it all changed come Tuesday.
I mean, yeah. And more than anything, Sean booked Sean, and Sean was going to have Carmelo Hayes lose. Because Sean wouldn't lose.
Some other bad ones that I have on this list, though, as well, because there's a lot. Mark Coffey, NXT UK Heritage Cup. You wouldn't even know that he was the champion because that was during the time frame where they're like, yeah, fuck NXT UK. And then he just loses back to Noam Dar, who may or may not still be champion. We heard the title that may or may not still exist because according to WWE.com, it does, yet they've never acknowledged it.
It's just going to transfer over to NXT Europe. I need you to realize.
It's just weird. Bobby Lashley's WWE title reign because it was a hot minute. They gave him the belt just so he could lose it, just to get people talking, I'm assuming. Liv Morgan's SmackDown Women's Championship reign, if you're looking as far as like a big major thing that didn't actually end up being all that great, that's the top one in my mind. Austin Theory Money in the Bank, if you count it. I don't know if I count it because it's not really a title, but if you count it, that's certainly something to think about.
I'm not counting it because it's not an actual title, but if I did, that'd be it.
The 2 other ones that I have on my list are MSK for the NXT Tag Team titles.
Yeah.
They win them, and then Nash Carter gets fired because of abuse allegations, which
you know what though
may or may not be true necessarily, but his wife also says, and look at this picture of him dressed up as Hitler. And they go, yeah, you're gone.
You know what though? Maybe that should be it for the simple fact of they knew when they put the belts on them, the allegations were going for like 4 or 5 days at that point, and they still put the belts on them. Just to strip them. Like maybe because of that stupidity alone, that should be it. That's something to think about.
And the other one that I have on this list is actually a combo. It is look at the 24/7 championship.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Because there are numerous title changes that, for a title that doesn't matter and has had so many title changes that mean absolutely nothing, there are like 20 that don't even count. They're that meaningless that they just had them on house shows for that crowd, only that crowd, to be like, you know what? Let's just have referee win and then somebody else will win and then Dana Brooke will get the title back and we won't even count it in the history books. So it's on smarkoutmoment.com because smarkoutmoment.com is much more in depth than even WWE has and a lot of things, and much more up to date. All the more reason why you should go to smarkoutmoment.com. But yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to not necessarily pick that. So I don't know if I can actually even pick between all these because they're all freaking terrible. You guys have any other ones?
It's go ahead, Callum.
I'll say the most of the ones you've already mentioned, like the the NXT Women's Tag Title ones, both with Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez and
Ilya and
Dakota Kai and Raquel.
Raquel.
Yeah, Raquel. Yeah, and it's not like the one with Katana Chance and Kaden Carter has been great, but at least they're defending it, so that's a plus. Austin Theory is the US champion. Thought that was pretty nothing. Ricochet's Intercontinental champion. I'm as I mentioned many times before, I'm not a fan of Mandy Rose being NXT Women's Champion all year. That's just been pretty stagnant. You've got both Ronda Rousey as SmackDown Women's Champion both times, and Liv Morgan as SmackDown Women's Champion. Bobby Lashley is WWE Champion, as you mentioned. I think if I'm just going to go overall, I'm just going to say, you've got, hey, look at the 24/7 Championship. I'm going to go, hey, look at the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. Because for half the year, they didn't exist.
So I want to piggyback off that because mine could easily be that, but I was going to zone in on Sasha and Naomi. Because you gave these girls these belts. And it was like, even at that moment, I'm like, really, this is the best you have for Sasha Banks right now? And then they walk out because they're tired of the belts not being properly treated, because apparently that was a sticking point for them of, hey, yeah, we want these belts because we want to actually do something with them. And then you're just content to not have the belts. And we've seen what they've done since the return. So I'm going to say Sasha and Naomi in particular, because I think who would have thought that simple thing at WrestleMania would lead to what it has? And I think WWE dropped the ball big, and you can say whatever you want, but if the reports are true as of today, December 13th at 6:25 p.m., New Japan Pro Wrestling is reportedly offering Sasha Banks more money than they did Chris fucking Jericho when he wrestled Omega. Like, if that's true, WWE dropped the ball bad, and you have to put this down as the worst title reign, because how do you drop the ball on Sasha Banks?
So let's talk about the best. I honestly don't think that there's many.
There's a few options, I think.
I think in terms of like defending the title and such, Braun Breaker is a potential. Because he's had, hey, I'm going to put the belt on the line multiple different times and do whatever. It's just been kind of one of those bland, like, he fought. Bad. Yeah, like he fought a guy and then he beat him and then they did it again and whatever. Technically speaking, if you're talking numbers, Roman Reigns, because he unified the titles, then he's been carrying that on and he's hit some records and everything. But when you're gone 60% of the time, then it's a little bit easier. So I think I might kind of end up going Bianca Belair, but even then, a lot of this has been just kind of fought Bayley 15 times. So honestly, I don't really feel like there is like a strong candidate for this. What do you guys have?
I think just sheerly based off of the idea that they have been so consistent and they have broken records.
Oh, am I forgetting the fucking obvious one? Yeah.
Yeah, you're forgetting the obvious
Usos.
One, because the Usos had the tag team title run of the year.
Yeah.
And because they unified the belts, well, I had to point this out. While the belts were not unified, had some great Raw Tag Team Championship matches this year, specifically with RK Bro and Alpha Academy and Rollins and Owens, and then at WrestleMania with the Street Profits. Great, fun matches. But the Usos taking the belt and merging them and now being champions for nearly 500 days. I think, actually, I'm stupid. They surpassed 500 a little bit after Survivor Series. They had the run of the year because they had matches of the year. And you talk about them against RK Bro, talk about them against Street Profits, against the Brawling Brutes. They had some great matches this year. It's the Usos.
Yeah, when you said that, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, it's the fucking Usos. What am I talking about?
Yeah, the Usos are definitely high up there. I think Gunther's had a very good reign as Intercontinental Champion. Like the matches against Sheamus speak for themselves, and like the match with Mysterio was great as well. I think like just bell to bell, it's one of the best. Bobby Lashley had a great run as the US champion because he essentially just said, "Yeah, I'll just fight anybody," and it was fun. And I thought he was really good as like this babyface conqueror after spending so long as a heel. RK Bro started the year as World Tag Team Champions, and it was fun still. Like they were tag champions for most of the first like 3 or 4 months of the year. Carmelo Hayes is North American champion. That was a more entertaining reign than Bron Breakker's one, and he added a lot of stature to that belt after it kind of been dragged. It's still having to wipe off the stink of Leon Ruff holding it for a while. So that's like he helped rehabilitate it. So the Usos probably they're definitely one of the standout ones, but I keep my eyes just always, as it's been the case for a lot of this one, my eyes always get drawn to Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair as Raw Women's Champion. Because God, they're so good. And they made the title feel so important. I think I'll lean towards Bianca because she's held it for pretty much the entire year, like since WrestleMania, and she's had good matches. She had a good feud with Bayley. She had a great rematch with Becky Lynch. She's defended it multiple times against like Asuka, and she was meant to have matches with Rhea, but that never materialized. So, and I thought Becky obviously had a great start of the year with her title defenses as well. But I'll lean towards Bianca for this one.
Shout out to arguably the MVP of the year that we haven't mentioned yet, Vacant.
Oh yeah, he had a great year. She had a great year.
Yeah, I mean they were the women's tag champions for like 6 months.
Whatever the pronouns that Vacant wants to go by is also going to come up quite a bit when it comes to the AEW side of the title reigns. So hey, Vacant.
Well, he was replaced with Interim.
Yeah, that's true. That is
Vacant
true.
and Interim had some great years.
Yeah.
His cousin Interim.
Yeah, they're two sides of the same coin in some ways. Somebody's got to at some point just like make a list of all the quote unquote titles that Vacant has won throughout the course of WWE history. Yeah,
way too many.
Anybody who's got the time on their hands.
I mean, he won like half a dozen WCW championships in 1 year. So
as I said before, with the beginning of our recording of the technical side, we have changed up some awards this year. So we don't have, for instance, the cameo appearance is not a thing anymore. And one of the things we got rid of entirely was the whole programming section, except for the fact that we kind of combined them into the writing side because it effectively is the writing of this. You know, they book the shows, they plan out who's going to win and so on and so forth. And we combined all of the different programs to just 2 separate awards. We've got the pay-per-view and special event, which we'll get into next after this one. But now this is the best and the worst, either TV show or digital program. Because look, let's be honest. Table for 3 is a TV show that lasts for 15 minutes on a digital streaming platform. Grit and Glory is like a YouTube TV show. It doesn't need to be necessarily a TV thing. We're not going to separate like what's the best YouTube show, what's the best thing on Peacock, what's whatever. But if it's on YouTube and it's a show that isn't just a recap, for instance, like a clip of Monday Night Raw, if it's on Peacock, if it's on USA, Fox, FS1, whatever it is, you got a list of a bunch of different shows ranging from 205 Live, Main Event, NXT, NXT Level Up, NXT UK, Raw, and SmackDown are the in-ring product. And I'm not even have everything on this list, but very, very quickly, Excalibur Mode, Afterburn, After the Bell, Bottom Line, Broken Skull Sessions, The Bump, Corey and Carmella, Grit and Glory, Ms. and Mrs., Playback, Pop Question, Raw Talk, # Short Facts, Superstar Toys, Table for 3, Talking Smack / the SmackDown Lowdown, This Is Awesome, This Week in WWE, The Ultimate Show, Up, Up, Down, Down, What's Next, WWE 24, WWE Aura, WWE Evil, and WWE Now. I might be forgetting things. Some of those might not even be on there because I can't find that fucking information out. I don't know if something like WWE Now airs in another country and they call it another thing outside of WWE Aurora. So I don't know. And we're going to put less emphasis on that stuff going forward. That's one of my things this year where I'm like, I'm not spending the time to figure that shit out. In the same regard, the worst is all that shit. Afterburn, bottom line, all that recap stuff, it's absolutely terrible garbage. You don't need to watch a single thing of it. And the only reason that it exists, and we got essentially confirmation of it this year, it only exists because they have some sort of contractual agreement with that network that they're airing it on. Where, for instance, they need to have like programming on the Indian market. So they have the Indian recap show and they say, that's a show that only you have. And Scott Stanford or whoever does it, just going into the office, they go, that's a clip show of the other things, and that's all they fucking do. So they put
Makes sense. I mean,
they put the bare minimum effort into it because it's a number thing. So it's crap.
My favorite thing every year is how much effort you put into this because it's fucking ridiculous, Tony.
That's why I'm going to put less into it going forward.
100 episodes of Walter Uha. Have you seen a single one of them?
Is it still on? I don't even know.
Yes! They hit 100 episodes
Oh,
this
you know
year.
what? They don't even fucking get on my list of possible options. Fuck them. But if you have to go with like an actual show, it's 205 Live or main event. 205 Live stopped being live and stopped being 205, lost its cruiserweight division, and then disappeared in favor of NXT Level Up, which is the same as what they were doing, except for they finally decided to name it the way it should. And main event should have fucking died with the Hulu thing, but they keep dragging it on.
You poor thing, they will not let it go. And now they're actually using main event to feature the NXT stars. So
smarter way to do it, but it's still crap. What do you guys have for worst?
I want to echo your sentiment of all that shit because sometimes I'll be honest with you, I've gotten articles out of WWE Aurora and WWE, Now India, so it does actually occasionally have good exclusive content, but it's annoying, and I hate that I have to keep track of it. So that, Al.
I don't get Raw's the worst TV show. It's 3 hours long. It's crap most of the time. At its best, it's boring. At its worst, it's the absolute worst shit on TV.
I fell asleep 3 times watching last night's.
Yeah, I know. It's just, it's too much. It's too much for a weekly product. 2 hours is maximum for TV shows.
And even that's pushing it somewhat.
Sometimes, yeah, but at least like these, like you could say, like it's made an improvement. It's gone from outright bad to outright boring in the transition. Yeah, Raw's just such a huge waste of time.
All right, well then let's go to the best Monday Night Raw. I'm going with the Ultimate Show, which is for anybody who doesn't watch it, which I'm sure is a good majority of people that don't even really pay attention to what happens on Peacock. It's a show where Matt Camp, Ryan Popola, Sam Roberts, and maybe another person, usually it's at least just those 3, do essentially what we do here, which is like fantasy booking. And to hear them have their debates about, well, I think that this person should go up against this person and whatever, we should have like the Bloodline against a team of, for War Games, it was like, I think, Dusty Rhodes, Cody Rhodes. I'm blanking on who the other ones were, but it was like they kind of went with this idea of like these like ultimate like baby faces to go up against the Bloodline for a War Games match and whatever. Like they do the mock draft and fantasy booking type stuff that we do, and I love doing it. So I find it interesting to watch them do it too. And Sam Roberts goes into some really fun diatribes about like, he's adamant that Bull Nakano is like on every fucking thing. So we all have like, I do my big man buffet. He has the Bull Nakano thing. Matt Camp always wants to fight for Candice LeRae in there. And I just like that little dichotomy. So
I've never seen too much of those. So I should go back and watch them.
You should definitely check it out.
That. I would give shout out to Up Up Down Down. Shout out to Xavier Woods for keeping that alive this year after it was ransacked with all of the releases last year. Woods also sadly lost G4 as quickly as he got it. So that sucks. But as I am someone who mostly watches the wrestling product, the best show is SmackDown because SmackDown has the bloodline.
Yep, 100% correct. SmackDown is the best show, and that's primarily been for the last few months because of the bloodline. And Sami Zayn, of course, who is the key part of the bloodline.
Yeah. Not gonna hear too much of an argument when it comes to me about that because we're very, very pro Sami Zayn in this household. I don't know why I was gonna go with that.
We love Sami Zayn in this house.
Yeah. Let's go over to the pay-per-view or special event. Now, this one, if you go to the list of the pay-per-views for this year, you can see the full breakdown of everything from WWE Day 1 through things like New Year's Evil and NXT. You got pay-per-views like the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. You got Stand and Deliver, Hall of Fame, Ceremony still counts. You know, the Tribute to the Troops still counts and everything. If it's a special show and not just a regular episode of Raw, or if it's a pay-per-view, it's all those. So I might be forgetting some things that come on here because it is hard for me to keep track of these, and I'm going to try to switch up my system a little bit for next year and try to, like, at the end of every month, I'm going to try to, like, go back and retype things out and all. But I had written down for some reason under the worst, In Your House, so fucking bland. And I don't remember really what necessarily happened there, so I'm going to have to...
That's because this year's In Your House was headlined by a pre-schism Joe Gacy and Braun Breaker, and they didn't do nearly as much with, like, the legacy stuff of In Your House. Like, they didn't do any Todd Pettengill stuff. And it was pretty much just, it's NXT, but on a Saturday.
So there was a 6-man tag between the Legato team and Tony D'Angelo's team, which I had said, meh, crowd was super invested. It was energetic, but it was sloppy and would have been better off as a street fight. Hopefully it's the worst thing on the card. Then I got Toxic Attraction against Katana Chance and Kaden Carter, which I said skip it and you wouldn't have missed anything. You got Cameron Grimes against Carmelo Hayes. That Hayes won the title. I said fine enough match, but nothing that you have to go back and check out. The third title to change hands and then go back to a former champion this year. Weird that keeps happening. Mandy Rose against Wendy Chu. I said Wendy Chu isn't the only one falling asleep here. Okay, that's a little mean.
Fuck.
I actually wrote out, okay, but that's a little mean. But this was yet again another generic match with nothing exciting. Pretty Deadly against Creed Brothers. Definitely the best match so far. I'm glad they won the titles. And then Breaker Gacy, as meaningful as I thought it would be. And that's not a compliment. This never should have been a follow-up match. The most interesting part was the last 2 minutes or so leading up to that was forgettable. So I don't know. I mean, maybe there are some better contenders that happened since then for the worst, but I at least had that written down. What about you guys?
So, like,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Callum, because you're probably... bigger.
Well, the ones I have listed for the worst are Royal Rumble, because I thought both Royal Rumble matches under-delivered, and that's the main part of the Royal Rumble. So if they don't perform, then the Royal Rumble doesn't perform, even though some of the other matches, like the Rollins and Reigns match, were good. WrestleMania 38 Night 2, because that was the Pat McAfee and McMahon stuff. That had the first Brock and Roman match, which I thought was a letdown the first Brock Roman match of the year, should I say? That was a letdown. It had like Bobby Lashley and Omos on it. So there was a lot on that show, which kind of eroded a lot of the goodwill from the first night. WrestleMania Backlash, because you just had like things like it was a lot of rematches. It was a lot of like Edge versus AJ Styles again. The only difference being that that was when Rhea Ripley interfered instead of Damian Priest interfering. I'm trying to think of what else was kind of on there that stood out, but it's just one of the ones that I had listed down. So I presume there wasn't a massive amount of stuff that was that interesting. Let me just have a look. You had another Omos Bobby Lashley match. You had another Cody Rhodes Seth Rollins match. You had Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair rematch from WrestleMania. The only really new match was Happy Corbin versus Madcap Moss, and if that's like the fresh hook that you're adding to a pay-per-view, it's not going to be that good. And the only really great match on that show was the Bloodline against Drew McIntyre and RK Bro. Money in the Bank. I didn't think that was particularly good. They had the whole Austin Theory coming out and doing the whole. It was like the Brock Lesnar thing from a while back, where it was just a guy comes in at the end of the match, or he comes in at the start of the match, but he gets inserted into it and just wins. And it was disappointing because I don't think many people wanted Theory to win when it was like felt like it was either Riddle or Rollins' time to win that briefcase. Ronda Rousey against Natalya. They had the Street Profits Usos match, which was great, but then you have like Bianca Belair versus Carmella in the feud that just never seemed to die.
See, I have that down as rock solid match. I enjoyed all of it. Kudos to Carmella for taking a replacement spot and still doing a great job, and kudos for Bianca Belair always being awesome.
I thought that match itself was one of the better ones they'd had, but then it ended with Carmella attacking Bianca Belair, and I thought, oh shit, this isn't gonna die. And then you had the Liv Morgan cash in.
Yeah,
it wasn't the worst one. I'd say I don't think there was that many like terrible pay-per-views this year. The other one I have is Extreme Rules, because I thought most of the matches on that card were a bit of a letdown. So you had obviously Ronda Rousey against Liv Morgan, which was one of my least favorite matches of the year. The Brawling Brutes against Imperium was great. That was probably the best match on the entire show. Karrion Kross versus Drew McIntyre in the strap match was bad. Bianca Belair versus Bayley in the ladder match had a really dumb finish, where they basically just neutered Damage Control in one night. Finn Balor versus Edge was a good match for the final 5 minutes of it, but the 20 minutes that preceded it were really boring. And Matt Riddle versus Seth Rollins had a lot of build and a lot of animosity going into it, and the Fight Pit match fell flat. So I think overall, looking at the choices I have, I would probably lean towards WrestleMania Backlash.
And after you've given that thorough rundown, and I thank you for it, I think Backlash would be it for me as well, because it had the most lackluster of the Cody and Seth matches. It really stood on the shoulders of the six-man, which was supposed to be a title merger for the tag team titles, that they just stretched out into another episode of SmackDown, which I hate that philosophy anyway, so I'm going to go Backlash.
Oh, and also just dishonorable mention, as should always be the case, any show they hold in Saudi Arabia.
My favorite, looking back on all these, my favorite one of the things that I wrote out for one of these is the United States Championship match between Austin Theory and Mustafa Ali from Hell in a Cell, which I wrote down. This was chicken fingers at a restaurant. You know it's not going to be an all-star meal, but it's a safe choice because they're unlikely to screw it up.
I like when we get into the chicken fingers discussion.
Chicken fingers at a restaurant. Yeah. Safe call. On the best side of things, because I guess I'm just going to go in your house. I don't know. Whatever. You know, I only had 2 written down for the best possible options, which were SummerSlam and Survivor Series. I think in the grand scheme, I'll probably go with SummerSlam. Now, Survivor Series is a little bit more memorable right now because it just happened. That had the 2 War Games matches, which were fun, but ultimately don't really serve much of a purpose. Styles and Balor was a rock solid match. Ronda Rousey and Shotzi was crap. And then the Seth Rollins, Austin Theory, and Bobby Lashley match was something that I guess I enjoyed well enough or whatever. But SummerSlam had Bianca and Becky, which was great. Logan Paul and The Miz was a lot of fun. The Bobby Lashley and Theory match, I have written down thumbs up, but it felt super short. Judgment Day and Mysterio's was only really interesting about Edge's return. I enjoyed Pat McAfee against Happy Corbin. Of course, the Usos and Street Profits are great. Liv Morgan and Ronda Rousey, no, not so much. But last man standing match, Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. So I'm going to go SummerSlam as the best pay-per-view of the year.
Callum, I think you'll echo my sentiments. WrestleMania 38 Night 1 had Becky Bianca, had probably what everybody was there for and they didn't know it. Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestling a match. WrestleMania Night 1 was tremendous. And it's my pick for show of the year.
Yeah, I think when push comes to shove, I'd go with that as my choice as well. I thought it had the best like little segment of the Bianca and Becky match, followed up by Cody and Seth, which was just like two of the best matches of the year, just back to back against each other. And then that was probably Ronda's best match since she's come back as well against Charlotte. Mm-hmm. That was actually well put together. And yeah, you have Kevin Owens and Steve Austin main event. It's just it was a really, really good show. And if it had the Sami Zayn, Johnny Knoxville one on that show, then it might be like a contender for one of the best WrestleManias of all time. Just like a one night thing, even though there was a second night as well. So it's hard to really judge. But if you're just going by one's one night and one's the other night, then night one was the best and was one of the best of the year. But the other one that kind of gives it a bit of a run for its money is Clash of the Castle for me.
Yeah, fun show.
I'm slightly biased because of the UK crowd, but I thought it was one of the best crowds of the year because they were super excited to be there. It's the first time that they've had a show of this magnitude come over to the UK since SummerSlam 92. And then Roman Reigns vs. Drew McIntyre was a really good main event. Rollins vs. Riddle was much better than the match they had at Extreme Rules. And they had a really, really good outing. Thought Edge and Rey Mysterio vs. Judgment Day was good, even though it had a bit of a weird, like it was a weird choice to have Edge and Mysterio win, but still, it had the heel turn, so that was good. Liv Morgan, Shayna Baszler, probably the most competitive Liv Morgan looked in any of her title defenses. Had Gunther and Sheamus, which was great. And Damage Control, this first time Damage Control actually looked dangerous when they beat Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss and Asuka, and you had Bayley pin Bianca for the first time she'd been pinned pretty much since the start of the year. So yeah, I think that was the second one for me. It was always a toss up between WrestleMania Night 1, Clash of the Castle, and SummerSlam. They were the three best shows by I think a considerable margin.
All right, so that's the best and worst of the pay-per-view side of things. Let's go over to one that doesn't have a best and worst. This is the most shocking moment of the year. So it could be a good or it could be a bad thing. That's why we don't, because we used to try to do like the most shocking worst moment of the year, and it just didn't seem to really make that much sense. So I have a few, and I kind of feeling we might end up actually all picking the same thing here, so I'll save that for my ultimate pick. But there's a couple runner-up options. Ivy's return as her right to censor character in the Royal Rumble. That was very shocking. Just not expecting that whatsoever. Figured if anything that Ivory would pop up as just Ivory, and that was kind of fun. Cody Rhodes wrestling at WrestleMania, of course, because even though everybody was like, oh, Cody's definitely coming back, whatever, it still was like, you never really know 100%. Liv Morgan winning Money in the Bank, cashing in and beating Ronda Rousey. Still surprising to me. All the stuff with WrestleMania and Vince McMahon and Pat McAfee and Stone Cold Steve Austin and him actually wrestling and all that, like that combo of Mania stuff with Austin is all super, super surprising. Dakota Kai and Io Sky popping up with Bayley at SummerSlam and Becky Lynch turning babyface in the process. It's down to two for me, and I'll spoil it. The runner-up is going to be something that I'm going to give another different award to, which is Cody Rhodes wrestling at Hell in a Cell. I'm going to give that a different thing. Number one, Vince McMahon fucking retires.
Yeah, I think this is a year where, and you didn't even say the words, Triple H retires from the ring.
Well, I mean, if you lump it all as the Vince McMahon regime change, as Triple H retires in the ring at WrestleMania while Vince McMahon has a match with Stone Cold Steve Austin and all this involvement, and then you get into Triple H is going to take time off because he potentially almost died, and then Stephanie's going to take time off, and the week that she's going to take off, she's named co-CEO because Vince McMahon leaves, and then a week later they go, nope, permanent CEO. All that stuff is just like, you know.
It's been a whirlwind year, but I think, just being honest, it has to be the Vince McMahon news.
Yeah, but I think just because you two mentioned it, and even though we're trying to aim for some repeats, I think just to be different, and the fact that we haven't mentioned it so far, Sasha Banks and Naomi walking out of the
That's
company.
another one, yeah.
There's that too, yeah. There's that too.
Like, because even though Vince McMahon, like, getting... Because it is shocking, obviously, because no one expected Vince to leave under his own power, let's say, in WWE. But
the allegations aren't shocking.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like the allegations I'm not surprised by, and I'm not surprised that it ended up with him being walked out, because even though I thought, okay, if there's one guy that's going to try and get through all of this, it's Vince, because he's done it all before. But it's still, like, these sort of level of allegations, you're not surprised that it led to a CEO leaving a company, if you think about it that way. Whereas the Sasha Banks Naomi walkout, it has happened before. You've had instances like the Stone Cold Steve Austin thing back in 2002. You had it same this year with Lesnar walking out briefly before being compelled to come back after Vince left the company. But I think that this one was just so poignant because it's two people that you just feel, I'm not so much like lifers, but there's always been like little rumblings about Sasha, but you always felt, okay, these two are pretty much staples of the company and they're champions at the point of being it. And the fact that they just get so fed up with what's happening, these are the two that actually stand up and say, "Well, listen, we don't understand your booking philosophy or what you're doing with us, and you're not treating these titles with the respect that we feel they deserve, and you're not keeping the promises that you gave to us. So we've had it, dropping our titles, and we're just going away." And as of even towards the end of the year, where everyone thought this would just be a short-term thing, especially when the regime change happened, they've not come back. And in a lot of the rumors circulating, Sasha's gone for good at the very least. And even Naomi, who's married to one of the main people on your TV show, is not back. So I think that is, in a way, is even more shocking for me, is the shock that it actually happened, and the shock that it hasn't changed yet. It's still nothing. It hasn't been remedied.
Yeah, it is really shocking. You would have thought at least with the Triple H change, it would have been like, all right, they sit down, they talk, and then they sort it out.
Yeah.
You know, it might be one of those things where honestly, maybe, like, I know CM Punk, when he first walked out on WWE, said, you know, if you didn't go on TV in Chicago and call me a quitter. And maybe it's a similar thing for Sasha and Naomi, where if they didn't heavy-handed put out a statement about how sad they were they couldn't deliver the match, and then have
disappointing
Michael Cole go,
they are, and yeah,
you know, oh, they let us all down. Like, it was some pretty intense stuff for those first couple of weeks there. And I mean, kudos to them for owning this year. Like, no matter what, those two can always look back at 2022 and say, yeah, this is the year we, you know, walked New York Fashion Week. We did all this stuff. And I think it's absolutely a huge story, especially, again, given the fact that Sasha's probably going to go make even more money. Like, kudos to her for taking that chance on herself.
So let's go over to the Smark Out Moment of the year, which sounds kind of redundant for us being Smark Out Moment, but that's the whole point. Is what is the thing that you thought was kind of like the best like thing for the year? Like, just like your fandom hit like its peak. And at the same time, what's the thing that made you just really question, why are you a fan and what the hell are you doing? And I'm so disappointed. On the worst side, I have written down time constraints from WrestleMania as an option. I don't remember what that was.
Almost certainly be leaned towards the New Day versus the Brawling Brutes match.
Yeah, see, we're back to that. Yeah.
Because they were originally meant to be on night 1 of WrestleMania, but got moved to night 2 and then only got 2 minutes to wrestle.
Yeah, so that's definitely something. That's a bronze medal for that. Silver medal, just because I kind of like to go more for like booking for this, more than just real life getting in the way. But obviously Big E's injury is just like the biggest downer of the year. So I don't know if it's like disappointment, because it's like, yeah, obviously like Rich Holland wasn't planning on doing that and Big E wasn't planning on getting injured. So I can't give that the same sort of weight to it. But if you're talking like the biggest, like, if there's one thing from this year that I wish I could go back and change, I would change that because, you know, his health is more important. But as far as just like booking wise and creative decisions and all, my pick for the worst Smark Out moment of the year is Austin Theory failing his Money in the Bank cash in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think objectively I was more upset at this than you were when it happened. I was, because you were even okay with the idea of him winning the US title this way, and I hated everything about this, and it failed, and it was kind of like the first chink in the armor for me, where it was like, oh fuck, maybe the things aren't going to change too much, because this was garbage, fucking awful, and just illogical in every sense of the word. And I hope that they never try anything that's stupid again.
That's definitely high up there. It's not my choice, though.
Yeah.
There's a few things. Like, again, I don't feel bad. I feel bad for shitting on people for getting jobs. Because it's just, but I audibly sighed when Karrion Kross was re-signed, and the same with Hit Row without Swerve. Like, Hit Row just doesn't work without Swerve.
I don't think they really worked even with Swerve.
And the one that's most like almost disappointing to me is, and again, I might be very much in the minority and on my own on this one. I think the treatment of Johnny Gargano since he's returned is just awful. Doesn't feel special at all.
Yeah, like, he's really just a guy, ain't he?
Yeah.
I mean, we've sung praises for Gargano for years about how much we love his stuff. So yeah,
he's Dexter Lumis's sidekick in this whole thing. Dexter Lumis is the star of that feud. He's just, you know, he's Dexter Lumis's voice. That's what Gargano is. But there's other stuff like continuing the Roman Brock stuff after saying they wouldn't wrestle after WrestleMania, and so, oh no, we have to bring him back for SummerSlam. Again, that's just disappointing. Just because they just couldn't move on. They can't create any other star until Sami Zayn comes along. Again, we mentioned it before, but the whole Men's Royal Rumble 2022 is just a huge letdown. Runner-up for me is the Clash at the Castle sing-along.
Oh, that's really
because
that's really dumb.
You know, I was voicing this as loud as anyone. Drew McIntyre needs to win this match. Drew McIntyre needs to be the champion, even if it's just for a brief time. Even if he drops it at Survivor Series or even before that, this was his time to win it. And then at the end of the day, like, Roman could be champion again. He's not going to break Bruno's record or anything like that. So, like, it doesn't matter if he drops it for a month and then reclaims it, and then you're back on the path to WrestleMania. But the worst thing for me, the thing that made me most disappointed to be a fan, I say a fan of WWE in like air quotes a little bit, because I've always had a bit of a tempestuous relationship with the promotion for a long, long time. But the thing that made me kind of just want to stop for a while is Vince McMahon coming onto TV after the allegations came out and cutting those promos. Obviously not.
Yeah, that was the thing, wasn't it?
Not specifically pointing them out, but then giving him the platform to do that stuff in the, well, obviously it's his platform, so he can do it once. But to have the, I don't know whether it's the arrogance, like some people call it just confidence, or the defiance, but just the sheer like lack of vision or just
the
pure arrogance.
Gall.
Yeah, to just come out there and just, you know, not even do anything. It's not like he was doing anything major. He was just saying like, hey, welcome to SmackDown, and we're always going to be part of WWE, and we're all a family together, and ha ha ha. And maybe actually the thing that made me feel even worse about that is not even just the Vince McMahon coming out, because that's obviously disgusting. It's the fans bowing, chanting his name. It's disgusting. It's utterly disgusting, I think, that there are fans that are just so blinkered to the fact that, yeah, this guy was the head of a promotion that you really, really enjoy, but he's a disgusting, horrible human being. And the fact that you can't see past that, these serious allegations, which are just growing, by the way, as we're talking now, it's now back in the news, and all the other stuff that he's done in the past, and the fact that you just, because he made a good wrestling show, he's absolved of everything. Like, so that's the thing that disappointed me the most is the fact that there are, and you see them on Twitter and any other social platform that there are fans so unbelievably blinkered to WWE fandom that they can look beyond these serious allegations. It makes me wish I wasn't a fan sometimes.
You know, I have to piggyback off that and say, maybe even more so when he was coming out himself, but when he retired and they had Stephanie come out, and the first time to the point where Stephanie had to calm them down because they were beating her to the punch. They were just like, "Thank you, Vince chants." It was completely organic. They didn't have to coax him, and I get what you're saying because I do understand that when the allegations are what they are, it can be difficult. So yeah, I absolutely can see why that's your worst moment of the year.
What did you go with, Rob?
Okay. So for me, there's a lot of things that I forgive. I think we've spoken ad nauseum here that like I'm the optimistic one and I'm just always looking on the bright side. And I know this is something I really have taken to task, but I was really, really not a fan of just everything with Theory this year, but not specifically for this one. I'm going to say the fact that they had John Cena come out for his 20th anniversary and literally just go, "Okay, I'm here. Okay, I'm leaving. I know you thought you were going to get me at SummerSlam. You're not. I'll see you when I want to see you." And it was just like, it was so deflating because it was in the middle of like the Vince stuff. I think actually that was Vince's last time on TV.
Introducing Cena, yeah.
Yeah, just introducing Cena. They had him do just a bunch of like nothing stuff. Like they had him do a stare down with Theory. They had him interact with Ezekiel. Like they did nothing with John Cena's only appearance on WWE TV this year. Now, granted, by the time you hear this, he will do one more. He will be on the December 30th episode where I think he'll just be announcing that he's in the Royal Rumble. But like, that's probably my weakest moment is Cena gets on TV and doesn't even set up a match with Theory. He just shows up and goes, "Hey, we've been in it together. Bye." You know, because it's a lot of what he used to criticize The Rock for. And yes, he's come out in interviews since and said, "If you took that for anything other than storyline fodder, I apologize." But like, it still sucks, you know? Could have been a big moment of the year, and it was just, "Okay, see ya."
So on the positive side of things, best, like, you know, moment of the year in so many different ways. We've talked about these, so, you know, we don't need to repeat it, but some of the runner-up things, Cody Rhodes returning at WrestleMania, the Austin stuff at WrestleMania, but my number one best thing is Cody Rhodes competing at Hell in a Cell.
Absolutely glorious moment. I've never seen anything that courageous because it looks like his fucking arm is about to just fall off the way that it's bruised and swollen. Great moment. My number one moment is specifically Austin wrestles more than like Austin just being there. Like Austin wrestling on this podcast in particular. You're so jaded, Tony, that you were like, "I don't know why you're getting your hopes up. He's literally just going to do the Kevin Owens show and maybe stun him and that's it." And they gave us a full fucking match. That was one of those moments where I went, "This is why I'm a fan. You see, they actually pulled through and gave us what we wanted. Good on WWE." That is easily my number one Smark Out moment of the year.
Yeah, the Stone Cold wrestled. It's kind of, it's it's something that I just didn't expect to happen. So it's definitely high up there. There's other ones that stand out. The Cody Rhodes return in general was very well handled. I think up until his injury, that they booked him really well, even though he was only wrestling Seth Rollins. They were telling a good story. And Cody wrestling with a torn pec is something that I would traditionally maybe put into this, but as I've made it very clear on this as well, I have conflicted feelings about that because I feel like it sets a dangerous precedent for people to work through injuries. And so I don't really want to give it credence as like a great thing. Even though like as on its own, it's a really, I'd say, courageous and cool visual, but I think that you don't want to put pressure on others to replicate that and potentially risk even more serious injury. One that may not immediately come to mind, I mentioned this earlier, but the Sheamus standing ovation after his match with Gunther at Clash of the Castle, just for a guy who's been doing this, like he debuted in like 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
2008
I
in
think
ECW.
I think it was
been
07.
8 or 9.
Yeah, but 2009 in ECW. But he'd been wrestling for many years before that on the UK circuit and in FCW and all this other stuff. But to get that moment of pure just crowd recognition of everything that he's done after 20 plus years in the ring was just a really, really cool moment to see for a guy who's given so much. Sami Zayn's, just the whole War Games match, like just Sami Zayn in the War Games match, just his interactions with Kevin Owens and the way that he celebrated with the Bloodline afterwards. You get the big hug with Jey Uso. Like that was really, really, really good storytelling. And you have, like it or not, like Bray Wyatt's return was big. He hasn't done anything since, but it was a big return.
Yeah, it was a good moment.
And Bianca Belair beating Becky Lynch, and also both at WrestleMania because that was a big moment, but then also at SummerSlam and having Becky do the hug, and then you have Bayley and Io Sky and Dakota Kai come out. That was like a really cool way to kick off SummerSlam. But yeah, that's just a way of just putting a load of honorable mentions because the standout one, as Rob mentioned, is Stone Cold Steve Austin got to wrestle this year, and it wasn't just like a stunner and a pinfall; it was a match. It was a beat 'em up, like brawl around the ring type match, but it was still a lot of fun.
And again, just because it's always nice to have something that validates why we're fans of something. You know, we said it a lot on this podcast last year. Good things are good, and that was the best thing they could have ever given. And yeah, they're talking about him doing it again. But I'm going to echo the sentiments of Mick Foley and say, I don't know if we need to run it back in LA. I think that was perfect.
So lots of good moments when it comes to those to balance out some of the bad, at the very least. Let's round out the writing side of the awards with the best and the worst storylines of the year. And there's some overlap when it comes to some of the other things we've talked about in the past, awards and all, but this is where you really kind of, nose to the grind kind of thing. What were the things that you had to track storyline wise that you liked the best and things that you hated the most? A couple different ones I got for the worst. My runner-up being bronze medal, nearly everything with the Judgment Day. I think that they've just really dropped the ball with them a lot of the time. My secondary one for that is this whole Dexter Lumis and The Miz thing, which is like The Miz hired Dexter Lumis to attack him, to keep himself in the loop of people paying attention to him and all. Like, none of this makes any sense. It's really stupid. But my number one worst storyline of the entire year is the double wedding stuff between Akira Tozawa and Tamina and Reggie and Dana Brooke. For obvious reasons.
I hear you. I do. And I like that you got scripts in there. I really do. But fucking Ezekiel, man. That was so bad. Because of everything I just said about Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestling, and you're going to tell me 48 hours later you got this motherfucker in a feud with Ezekiel? That was the worst thing they did all year. awful.
It was like the worst, taking the best thing and trying to build the momentum out of that. It's the example of completely neutering it. Yeah.
So you mentioned quite a few already that would be on there. So Judgment Day versus Edge / Rey Mysterio versus AJ Styles, just constant. The Ezekiel Elias thing, that's bad. I've got here, you've mentioned The Miz, Dexter Lumis, and Johnny Gargano, which is really, really bad, and it might even be number one for me as well. But there's Drew McIntyre against Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss.
Yeah.
At the start of the year. Damage Control versus Bianca Belair and friends. Because I was really critical about the fact that they just didn't actually add anything. They didn't really add a story to this. It was just them constantly fighting each other for 3 months. And it hasn't really even come to an end yet. Got Toxic Attraction on top of NXT for Eternity. Because it is just very stale. It's just woman challenges Mandy Rose, loses to Mandy Rose, rinse and repeat. Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. Because even though it ended in that great match at SummerSlam, it's we've seen it for every year, for pretty much every year, it feels like, for a long, long time. So just having that on repeat just it's not what we need in 2022. Well, it shouldn't be what we have to resort to in 2022. And then the other ones that I have are kind of just Ronda Rousey in general. Like, it's not really a storyline per se, but just everything that Ronda's done has just been a really big disappointment. And has really made me paint her in a slightly different light in terms of what she could have achieved had she been just a full-time wrestler. Because I thought that if you make Ronda Rousey a full-time wrestler for her entire career, then she would be one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time. And this year has completely changed my perspective on that. And then the other one is Austin Theory as Mr. Money in the Bank. Because it's all just led to him failing to cash in on the United States champion.
Yeah, the big payoff of him attempting to cash in was him saying, I was never going to win it anyway.
That was... Don't get me started, please.
Yeah. But
I hate that.
I appreciate that one had a few fun moments of him doing the fail cash-ins when he gets knocked out by Tyson Fury and stuff like that. So whatever. So overall, I would probably end up going with the Miz, Dexter Lumis, Johnny Gargano stuff because it makes no sense. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of, like, you won't hear me say this too much, but it's a waste of the Miz's talents. It's Dexter Lumis is being prominently positioned way too far, and I know it's at least early on it was getting a lot of good crowd reactions, but I think it's just like it's keeping Gargano relegated to a subsidiary spot behind a guy who, he's okay in the ring, and you can say what you will about his character, and it somehow engages a lot of people despite him not doing anything that resembles engagement. But I just really, it's been one of the worst parts of Raw for the last 3 months, and it just doesn't seem to end or show any signs of ending.
Alrighty, well, let's go to the best. And the only thing I have written down is something we've talked about a lot. Sami Zayn in the Bloodline.
It's the Bloodline, yeah. it's the Bloodline.
There's other options. I slightly lower down on the pecking order. I've got Legado del Fantasma versus Tony D'Angelo's crew. I thought that was the best feud of NXT. Well, one of the best feuds of NXT all year. Because, as I say, I'm a big fan of Tony D'Angelo, and this is a good way of getting establishing them and then pushing Legado up to the main roster, which hasn't been as successful. But that was a good undercard feud. And then you have all of the machinations of the Diamond Mine and their breakup and everything involving that. And I think it ended really well. Well, ended quote unquote really well with the whole Julius Creed and Damon Kemp ambulance match. It was a good way of resolving tensions and then just having them move into their own separate group. But the three standout ones for me are Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins, Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch, and the Bloodline and Sami Zayn. And yeah, you're right. Bloodline and Sami Zayn is the best. But the other two were pretty close as well. I thought in-ring wise, the other two stood out because they had such great matches with each other and they have such good chemistry, both in the ring and on the microphone with each other. But Sami overtook pretty much everything this year.
Sami Zayn getting a lot of bonus points when it comes to the writing side of awards. We are agreeing on a lot of those. So, I mean, he might carry that over into the performer side because that is the third and final section of the WWE 2022 End of the Year Awards here from Smark Out Moment. As I said before, make sure you let us know in the comments below what you picked for the best and the worst for all these categories and what you think about our picks as well. And keep in mind, of course, as I said as well previously, about the 13th of December being when we're recording this. Maybe some good stuff happens in the meantime that we go, you know what? Hey, that's so much better. And in retrospect, we would have gone with this or not. I don't know. But as we will do when it comes to the AEW stuff, we will carry over the writing awards for almost all of these categories and apply them to all Elite Wrestling for that section. Stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for the Performer Awards. If you are on the audio only thing, it'll most likely just be coming up right next in another minute or so. But if you are on YouTube, then it's a separate video entirely. So we want to just remind everybody that you can follow us all over the place at Smark Out Moment. Go to smarkoutmoment.com and check out everything that's happening there. Go to amangotree.com or anthonymango.com and see a list of a whole bunch of other things like fanboysanonymous.com and my personal accounts at Tony Mango. All your support is greatly appreciated, and make sure that you are following these guys as well. Rob?
Yep, I'm everywhere at DeFelice. If you've been following long enough, or if you follow Fightful, WrestleZone, Inside the Ropes, you know where to find me. I now toss you over to Callum.
Yep, you can find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. Check out the power rankings over at smarkoutmoment.com. And while you're there, stop by the Fantasy League or go to www.fantasyleague.com.
Alrighty, everybody. Part 2 of the WWE End of the Year Awards in the bag. We got part 3 coming up next, Performer Awards, where we start breaking down the Superstar of the Year and we talk about the Manager of the Year and all the other kind of things that go along with that. So we will see you then, everybody. But for now, this has been another Smark Out Moment, and we are being counted out.